I got to begin by, and I'm already getting teary-eyed, I got to begin by saying happy anniversary to my beautiful wife of 21 years. It's 21 years she's been putting up with me, and God bless her, that's right. And as she said, right, when she met me and we were dating, she knew that she'd have to share me with the community. I'm deeply humbled to be here with you all today, and knowing that my wife gets to be here. And you know, just to be honest, Naleo falls on the time of the year when it's her birthday that week, so we don't miss Naleo and we don't miss a good, fun event. And Cube always seems to happen to fall on our anniversary. So Cube has been extra, extra special for me, as you can imagine. Absolutely. I know Van Henry's not here, but I want to give that man a shout out because he appointed me to this board when we had a conversation about the lack of representation, right? And so what that conversation looked like, and the man was a leader that he didn't take offense to that. He said, I'm going to do something about it. And so because of him, I get to stand before you as well. So many folks in here, Cube has given me so much. Want to also quickly recognize my crew, my team, my posse from Fort Worth ISD. A number of them are here. If you would please stand. CJ, Q, Toby. Thank y'all. Yeah. We got MBK in the house. Also want to thank you, the steering committee, for having faith in me to do this work. And I know that I'm just going to be honest and real, as people have gotten to know me. A lot of folks were walking around in Philadelphia saying, how does Mexican get this seat? Si se puede, right? But I think that same thing that happened on my board in Fort Worth is the same thing that happened at the national level. We see each other as people. And we see each other, not that I'm colorblind, I'm not colorblind, but we see each other as people and as humans. As our superintendent says, we see each other as assets to be invested in, not as problems to be solved. Thank you, steering committee, for supporting me on that. So the topic is the state of urban education, and it must be because I'm working on my doctoral program and I'm in my dissertation, where my topic is school board governance and student achievement. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring it back to us, those of us that are elected or appointed to represent young people in our communities, in our cities, in our towns, in our counties. I want to bring that back to us just for a minute, in that I recognize in the research there's characteristics about high-performance school districts that directly correlate to high-performance school boards. And so the topic that I catch myself around often is a dysfunction within systems, within leadership, within this and that. And I think, as what we've witnessed in here in Miami, when great leaders work together, great things can be done, to the point that Tom was making. So my topic is going to be more along what we call balanced governance. So now look, 6 years ago when I ran, I'm not going to say the word P, but I was ticked off at public school education. We had moved our kids to the suburbs because it was that I believed that we had to move out of the hood to get a good education. And great people invested in me who said, it's not always about leaving the hood, it's about coming back to the hood. And so there was my conflict of how can balanced governance exist? If this is a Eurocentric model and it's not working for children of color, then how are we going to fix this? So what does balanced governance look like? So for me, for example, you know, when I promote or I'd ask for something like a holiday, the initial reaction was usually like, well, why would we do that? And I would say, well, name me 5 white people that have made this country what it is, and everybody could name them. Then I would say, name me 5 black people. As a matter of fact, you ought to do this with students and see what you get. And then I said, name me 5, Then I'd say, name me 5 brown people, Latinx leaders. And maybe I'll get Cesar Chavez, and I rarely get Dolores Huerta. And then the room goes quiet. And then I would say, why don't you teach me about Dr. Jose Angel Gutierrez, Corky Gonzalez, La Raza Unida Political Party? Why can't I learn about who I am and where I come from? And then let's go to another one. What about the Asian American community? Why don't you teach me about Yuri Kochiyama? And then our American Indian brothers and sisters. Give me my leaders. Show me how we're relevant. And so how does balanced governance exist in that space? To go from being what people say is a good board member staying in our lane, and then also bringing in that activism into the room. It's complex, my friends. So I'm going to tell you that I've got my mentor in the house. Rickie, I want you to start making your way up, my friend. One of my greatest mentors is a man named Rickie Clark. He was in the video. Rickie. Now, he introduced me to this poem by M.K. Asante that talks about young people having to learn how to take 2 sets of notes. I've learned how to take 2 sets of notes in a lot of scenarios. For example, I know about Pedro Infante, Vicente Fernandez, and I know about Frank Sinatra, right? I can mix it up. I know about Marvin Gaye, been exposed. I grew up speaking Spanish, learning English in school. And I also love tacos tapatios from my favorite restaurant called JB's Taqueria on Northside Fort Worth. You ever come, I'm gonna take you there. Let me tell you, I'm gonna flip it. And I also know Taco Bell. It is unfortunate that I had to grow up and learn how to take 2 sets of notes in the public school education system, but I'm not complaining anymore. I'm choosing to engage and do something about it, as I know you are as well. So I'd like Rickie to share 2 sets of notes with us, and then I'll come right back. Rick, it's all you, my friend. MBK handshake, baby.
Thank you. Let me begin. This is a poem by M.K. Asante, and I quote, "Sometimes I feel like I'm above the ground and the ceiling, and institutions that disengage in healing. Instead, open warp wombs trap me in rooms consumed with hypocrisy. But it has occurred to me that Greek philosophers didn't author their own philosophy. Statues on campus be watching me. Washington, Jefferson, Williams clocking me as if to say, Negro, your time is up. But I don't run laps around tracks, I run laps around scholars of tomorrow, because new school of thought is merely our history borrowed. They label me militant, black national radical, trying to put my learning process on sabbatical. But I don't apologize, because the truth to the whites of their eyes, infected by white lies. They even try to get me to see their point of view by a brother that looks like me, but their brother don't walk like me, talk like me, or act like me. He even turned his head and ran when I asked if he was black like me. Memorizing their thoughts and forgetting our own, and wonder why we always feel alone. From the media to academia, hanging our brothers like coats. And in their schools, always take 2 sets of notes. 1 set to ace the test, and 1 set I call the truth. And when I find historical contradictions, I use the first set as proof. Proof that our youth minds are being polluted, convoluted, diluted, not culturally rooted in anything except Western massacre. Most of us are scared of Africa. You'll view our mother's land through the eyes of David Ham and Emmanuel Can. But Emmanuel Can tell me about a land he never seen. A land rich with history, beautiful kings and queens. But they'll have you to believe otherwise. The history is built off high-rise lies. The pyramids were complete before Rome or Greece were conceptualized. And then they'll claim that the Egyptian race was a mystery. I tell them, read, he wrote this book too. It's their history. It can't get any clearer. Young people, look in the mirror. We are the reflection of divinity. Don't be fooled by selective memory. Walk high and listen to the elders who spoke. Young people, always take 2 sets of notes. Thank you.
My man. So I think you can get a glimpse of who's been investing in me. You know, there's the second part of this that goes with governance for me is that Cube created the space for me to be able to be myself. Cube created the space for me to learn how to have courageous conversations. Cube gave me the ideas of how to create a policy that can force the system to begin to shift. And Cube also created that space of solidarity for me, where people of all walks of life, I got an opportunity here to, what we say, flex my muscle, not in that I'm strong and bigger and better, but what I'm saying is my muscle on race was pretty strong. I had been raced and racialized in my life growing up as a young Mexican American in north side of Fort Worth, Funky Town, Texas. So my muscle was strong with that one. My muscle wasn't as strong with gender or heterosexism or any of those others. People have been teaching and investing in me to not be fearful of other peoples and other populations. My wife is quick to point out when I mess up, and so then I'm reminded of my male privilege from time to time. So I want to go to this part with, oh, y'all seen it. I learned at CUBE that race isn't rocket science, it's harder than rocket science. Because K through 12 systems do not teach us about that. We are walking around rubbing up against one another, bumping into one another, not liking one another. We're filling in blanks on stuff because we don't know how to talk about the social construct of race. And when we do learn how to talk about the social construct of race, we know that it's BS. And then we know that Johann Blumenbach and Christoph Meiners created this construct to work exactly the way it's designed to work, to keep us divided. And so the state of education, especially now, as Alberto laid out for me beautifully, is that we are conscious and aware that this system was not designed by us or for us, and definitely not designed to benefit us. So we got to counter this thing. And so I ask you to begin to flex that muscle and work on it. If you're uncomfortable with the conversation of race, ask yourself why. Get on this journey with us. Because the more you stay stuck in that arena, the longer it's going to take for us to get to work. So I'm asking you to do that. As you heard Rickie, what we brought in are really what we talk in critical race theory, the counter narrative, the storytelling that's taking place. Right now, what I heard and what I hear at CUBE is people speaking their truth. And when we do that and we tell our stories, it's not that we're egotistical and that we think all these grand things about ourselves, is that my truth is relevant, as is yours. And so please continue to do the storytelling and do the counter narrative. And we did that through curriculum in Fort Worth, as you saw in the video. It was important for children of color and white children to learn other people's histories, and children of color to learn their own. So that I could walk around saying, I am Jacinto Ramos Jr., son of immigrant parents. Father from, like you heard in the video, from Acuña, Coahuila, my mom from Morelia, Michoacan. Neither graduated from college because neither had the privilege or the opportunity to go to college. And I am proud of my indigenous blood of the Purupecha people, that once I became conscious and aware of who I was and where I came from, that I could tell you that the Purupechas, we were never conquered by the Aztecs, i.e. the Mexicas. The Mexicas is where the term Chicano, Chicana came from. So you see, I'm already starting to feel better. I'm loving that blood that's running through my veins right now. And I'm speaking with a point of pride, not that I'm better than you, but that I'm relevant. There's a place for me in this world. And by the way, you know why we were never conquered by the Mexicas? It's not because we went toe-to-toe and fought with them. It's that we negotiated with them. And the only ones in the entire region that couldn't be conquered, not because we fought with them, but because we could chat it up and chop it up with them. And so when somebody tells me 6.5 years ago, you ought to run for school board, you're talking a lot of mess out there. I said, I don't want to be one of them politicians wearing them nice suits with a pocket square. I don't want to do that. I couldn't have imagined that 6 years later we'd be doing this. Once I figured out who I was and where I came from, and somebody said, no, you ought to do it because you're a great negotiator. They had witnessed me for 12 years in the streets doing gang intervention, seeing too many young people incarcerated and too many young bodies in coffins. And so when somebody said, you can be a great negotiator, there was the light. They came to me. I said, I ought to run for school board, and I ought to do something about it. And my minutes and my time should not be wasted in doing what we're trying to do. And I can't thank you all enough because you always bring me inspiration and you get me hyped. And when I go back, I always tell my colleagues, you got to come to CUBE, you got to come to CUBE, right? We got to do work. Some people, as Rickie says, some people call me radical or militant. I'm going to tell you that the young people in my neighborhood say I'm an anomaly. And I'm not okay with that. I'm really not. There should be plenty more young leaders like us. Plenty more. I'm going to leave you with this, and I'm going to ask Rick to come back because Rick does it all. He's the best closer in the house. A couple of words I'd like to encourage you. This is the professor coming out of me from TCU. The word minority. Let's eliminate that word. And I'm going to tell you why. The Latinx community, the brown community, is already the majority and going to be by far the majority in the country. People of color are already the majority in this country. And again, my white brothers and sisters, don't get too uncomfortable, but get a little uncomfortable. So when I walk up to my friends that are white and I say, hey, you going to be all right me calling you a minority? Oh, hell no. So then why should I continue to embrace that word? Words have power, my friends. And if we keep saying, calling each other minorities, minority implies less than, and there's no reason why we need to continue that kind of language. The other one is the term illegal alien, which is a trigger for me. Yeah, I'm glad y'all get it. You know, Alberto said it earlier, he's like undocumented human being. I can work with that. I can definitely work with that, but I can't work with illegal alien. My friends, I told you that I'm using every minute that I have to push this system to do the work that it should be doing. And so, Rick, if you would please, tell them where I got this mental model from about life is but a minute. My man. Thank you all.
I do have to say this, man. I've been working with Cinto for some 20-something years, man, and it's been the best thing I ever could have done, just to pour into someone else, and he would just soak the information. We were roommates at a multicultural camp. And from that multicultural camp, we've created the black and brown binary, and it's been on. And I would tell people, he'll tell people in a minute, Rickie's my mentor. I want to say to Cube today, Cinto's my mentor. You ought to see the work that he does. And I don't want to get emotional right now. But I'll close with a poem by Benjamin E. Mays, and I'll quote, "Life is but a minute with only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon us, we didn't seek it and we didn't choose it, but we will suffer if we abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it." My question to Cube is, what you gonna do with your minute? Thank you.